All right. Where are the notes? Where are the notes? Here they are. You know you found your notes when there's a drawing of a sword going through a brain. And there's a sword going through a brain. That's how you know you found your notes. There's a sword going through a brain. Bow, 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 bow. Got the creaky chair. Yeah. Bow, 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 bow. There, you should be able to hear me now. Yo, what's up with the albino? Look, that's too funny. Hawaiian Tropic, because it's just that good. Bow, 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 bow. Oh, the heat is here. It's summertime. COVID gonna be gone real soon because the smart people got vaccinated. And the idiots still ain't vaccinated. We're still gonna put up with the idiots for a little while longer. They complain the whole way. And with the whole thing over, they'll have nothing to say, but they had nothing to say before because the idiots. Ow! Hey, guys. Wow. Wait a minute. I have to go this side now. I got a good barber. So now when I think, I have to do this. Isn't that weird? Have you ever, you get a habit like you do this while you're thinking. You're like, I'm just going to move my tuft around because that's how you're thinking. But no, I'm thinking this way now. I'm thinking with the left arm, with my Aquaman arm. Hey, everybody. Ingrid Bernal, Hankrin Fernail, Drunks and Dragons, Runehammer. That's the YouTube channel that you're on right now. How to play D&D just a little bit more better than you used to. Let's not get to talking fast, okay, because it's rude. My tuft, my booty and my butt. My tuft. You know I like it rough with my booty and my tuft. My tuft. I push it to the left. Left and tuft do not rhyme, but that's okay. Okay. Woo-wee. What's up? Gather around, ye folk. We're going to hopefully talk about something that can help you play a little bit of Mo Better D&D. It's not an easy thing, is it? Now that some time has passed, we've been thinking about how to play awesome D&D, how to like do this hobby with absolute efficacy and commitment, like John Wick level D&D. It's not easy, is it? It's not easy to continually fill the well, as Picasso would call it, to find new resources in your own creative craziness to keep tapping. It ain't easy, and that's okay. So that's why we're here on Runehammer. Hello, everybody. Yo, Andrew, what's up? Paul, my man. So before we get into all the crazy tonight, everybody, file on in, get your drinks, smoke them if you got them and whatnot. Let's gather in. Holy moly, it's been a couple weeks. And most of that time I spent in the woods, on the beach, in the sun, flying kites, screwing around with my dog, hanging out with my girl, sleeping in a tent, waking up with birds, cooking on a picnic table like a normal person. And then it's so weird to return to like urban residential life. You're like, why am I in this giant reinforced box? I should be out in the elements. Of course, you think that in the summer, but then in the winter, you're like, God, I love houses. Anyway, took a little R&R, got out there. And of course, most of the time, you're kind of just like absorbing life when you're taking a break, right? But inevitably, start thinking about the same things that I enjoy thinking about, right? Which are like storytelling, how to bring people together, how to make things interesting, how to flip it, and most importantly, how to be creative in an ongoing fashion. That's something we talk about here on Runehammer all the time. It isn't like I know all the stuff about D&D and now I'm good to go. for me, that is not how to play at Mo Betta. That's not playing like a grown ass man or woman, right? That is sort of a smaller task, like knowing a system and stuff like that. And I know that in our hobby, that does become like a big red herring. Like I know all the details, I know all the ins and outs, I know the little nooks and crannies between the rules, and I know how to make a character that kicks total ass. Or as a dungeon master, I know how to make a monster or an environment that's deeply challenging, but also fascinating, has a lot of reveals built in because of, this, that, and the other thing. Yes, all that stuff is freaking cool. If you're doing that stuff currently, yes, welcome to our hobby. This is where I dwell. This is my spot for a while now. But I think the hard part is not doing that. The hard part is being creative on that hamster wheel of dungeon mastering, that hamster wheel of being creative on a regular basis. So we've talked a lot about on Runehammer here about like how inspiration is sort of the kind of the buzzword of creative folks who are sort of new to being creative on a regular basis, is that you become creative when you're inspired, right? Which is absolutely true across the board for all humans. You become creative when you're inspired. I think the challenge that we face often in our hobby, especially as game masters, is to be creative just because it's time to be creative, not necessarily because you're like juiced, you're jamming out on freaking, death metal and like reading Mothership, and you're just thinking to yourself like, oh my God, RPGs are so sick. But that doesn't always happen. When it does happen, it's amazing, but it doesn't always happen. It's just like being an enthusiastic reader, like I am. So some novels, you're reading them and you're just ripping through them. And you're like, oh my God, this writing style is so sick. And like the way that this writer is like revealing everything is so crazy. Oh my God, this is dope. And then other times you're reading a novel and you're like, I just need to get to the end of this so that I can say I read this. The one is like an inspired state, and the other is just like, I'm kind of just here doing it. I'm just like, I'm turning the soil so that the plants will grow. So I think that somehow, here we go. This is the magic that I would like to think Runehammer is always clawing at here on YouTube. And so if you're tuning in, hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome. That is the essence of what I do and why I show up here on Friday nights to talk to y'all and interact with y'all, and also transmit this energy, this feeling of attacking, this creative attack. And an attack isn't a negative word. It's an energetic go at. And that's the thing that I like to talk about here on the channel, is not necessarily like, well, here's a little detail you may not have noticed. That's not really my style, because for one thing, I just don't notice a lot of details that other people don't. I'm more of a meat and potatoes kind of energy guy, more so than like a Sherlock Holmes type. But also, I think it's just something that the weekly dungeon master, the person that's just showing up to continue to facilitate players having fun and getting to know each other and getting to know each other's imaginations, and maybe getting to know each other's sort of innocence a little bit, seeing a vulnerable side of people. And D&D is brilliant for that. And D&D, by the way, as I say so many times, is not referring to Dungeons and Dragons. It's referring to all tabletop role-playing games. Okay, so let's just get that back out in the open. But I think D&D is a fun place to get people's vulnerable side out, and especially if you're a good dungeon master. If you're skilled at game mastering, you can help people reveal some of those vulnerable sides and be creative. Nowadays, it can be intimidating to be creative in front of others, especially on the spot, improvising and stuff. That can be very intimidating. I think a really good game master facilitates that, and that is a skill you can never master. And to be creative with it every single week, it's not easy. And so what we're talking about tonight is 3 things that I wanted to hit you with that maybe could be useful for that weekly D&D kind of mindset. That dungeon master who is showing up on that hamster wheel week after week. Maybe you have more than one game a week that you're playing with folks. And like, where do all these ideas come from? Are you really just sort of, presenting ideas to players. And if that's the case, I mean, no matter how streamlined your prep may be, you're always presenting ideas to players. And so with that in mind, what are things that can help us do that? And I've been thinking on this and musing on this problem for years now, right here on YouTube. So if you want to go back and check it out, it's all right there. So tonight we have 3 new things, and these are kind of the 3 things that occurred to me when I was living that road life last week. Living that road life, living that beach life, and, just sleeping outside every night with the bugs and with the weather, and waking up and, making 1 cup of coffee, not a pot of coffee, and like cooking your breakfast right there in the morning while the sun's coming up and stuff. And just, man, living that simple, in tune life. And one of my friends hit me up like halfway through my sort of vacation, said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Oh man, at this point, we're just in tune with the sun. I'm just straight zoning out right now." And he goes, "You're not zoning out, you're zoning in." That got me to thinking that vacation mindset, there's a reason we covet going on vacation. There's a reason we get psyched about it. There's a reason we look forward to it, because it's zoning in. And because that is a state that I think we're not in as often as we could be. And that is my little intro to what tonight is all about. So the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is something that really came to me on the very last day of my journey as we were going up and down the East Coast and, hanging out on beaches and camping in forests and stuff, which was, we're just out flying kites. Straight up, got a $4 kite at the corner store. And it's a Sky Spy, which is like a kite that I had when I was like 8 years old. It's crazy. They still make this thing. It's like the cheesiest little $3.99 kite. But, out by the beach, you get that nice consistent breeze, and you can just scoop a kite all around. You can dive bomb it and just like work it, give it a little slack and watch it drift down and then yank it. And it's awesome. And yet before you know it, you've been waving this piece of plastic around in the air for no damn reason for like 2 hours. And that brings me to my first idea tonight that I want to share with you guys. And what I've basically been calling it in my own head is a pure state. And so like flying that kite was a pure state. That was a pure state. There was no outcome for flying that kite. There was no beginning point, and I didn't have to go home at any point. The kite could be flown for any amount of time for absolutely no reason. And there was no pressure from anywhere or anything to either start or stop. It was a doing with only the doing. A pure state to me is like it's doing a thing without expecting anything else. It's being in that moment without a sense of time. And why bother thinking about this? Why bother putting a name like a pure state on this moment? Why not just say, "Hey, that was fun," and sort of move on with life? I think because the pure state is something that as creative people, as storytellers, as fantasy dwellers, as big thinkers, as friend lovers, which, like all game masters are these things, the pure state is something I think that we want more than we get. We want it more than we get it. And I would actually argue that almost all human beings want these kind of experiences more than they get them. And the reasons why we don't get pure states in our lives on a frequent basis are too obvious to talk about. We all have a zillion reasons why we don't just get to go fly a kite on a whim for 2 hours when no one cares when we're going to be leaving or returning or why or what we're doing, right? We don't need to think about the practical elements that keep us out of pure states. I think it's more interesting to think about, how do we get there? How do we put ourselves into these pure states? Because I can tell you from recent experience, this is like a couple days ago, that the pure state is when all of your unsolved creative problems will be solved. It is also when you will be regenerated and rejuvenated. It's a corny cliche, right? That when you go on vacation, you like rejuvenate and you have like this new energy for all the stuff in your life. But we all have been on vacations where that does not happen. Actually, vacations can be exhausting. I don't think it's vacation that rejuvenates you. It's a pure state that rejuvenates you. And so how can we like reach for that? How can we look for this pure state? And you probably already can feel the answer sort of brewing around in your head. We all have brushed with this and know how we got there. We each have a little bit of an anecdotal evidence, I guess you could call it, in our heads of, that one time. And I think that the answer to this question of how do you get into a pure state, how do you access this sort of goal state that we want, that we plan on, that we look forward to, how do you get there? I mean, you declutter. And just associating like a Marie Kondo level of decluttering is being reductive. This is a decluttering of your perception. This is a taking of things that are not immediate and putting them away. Now, on vacation, especially a good vacation, a relaxing one, this takes a matter of days, right? We all know that feeling of being on vacation, and for the first 3 days, you're still like wound really tight and you're kind of like antsy, and it takes till the last few days of the vacation to really relax, right? That's the vacation version of the answer. But for our daily life version of the answer, this decluttering word, it hits us hard if we really do want this pure state to happen. It's not a matter of like, how many things do I have on my bookshelf here? Like maybe I can get rid of my He-Man with Skeletor's head, which is something that's like a staple in my life. But maybe I don't need He-Man with Skeletor's head. Maybe I could declutter that way. It's not really saying that. What it's saying is it's decluttering your time. Decluttering your time. And I'm not saying this like to preach at you guys or to yell at you. I'm saying this as I realize it unto myself. My time becomes filled with things, with stuff. And especially y'all with families and different complex obligations that are out there. You know how this is. This shit's intense. It's real, right? You want to do the right thing, and there's a million things to do each day. And you got to do them. There's no negotiating your way out of this stuff. Like this shit needs to get done, right? You got to do the right thing. You got to be there for the people around you. And so decluttering can get complex. Now the answer of how to declutter your time is obviously something that I am woefully unqualified to help anybody with. But I think the idea of seeing it in yourself and asking how you can declutter your time, if what you're wanting is a pure state, is an exercise that you can do that can be productive. I guess this sort of is an answer to a question that maybe y'all don't know that comes my way more frequently than is publicly evident, which is that how do I continually be creative? How are you so creative? How do I avoid burnout? How do I keep coming up with new ideas week after week? How do I kind of surprise my players? How do I be that beacon who seems more enthusiastic when I'm actually kind of tired? I get asked this stuff every single week by people in a lot of cases that I don't even know. And so I'm always looking for an answer. And this decluttering your time is, by the way, not freaking easy. This is not like a self-help book where you're going to feel good at the end. This is not enlightenment for dummies. Decluttering your time is probably one of the most difficult things you can do as an adult human. But you're not decluttering your space. You can live in a pile of stuff. It's your time that you need to declutter if you want this pure state to happen. How do you declutter your time? Don't schedule things. Have nothing to do. Even sitting there writing in your journal thinking, oh my God, I am killing this prep right now. This adventure is going to be so sick. Hankerin helped me out. He told me to like even out my brain, and I am straight up even. And even that is a thing. That is doing something. I would invite everybody to declutter even beyond your own hobby, even beyond the target or the goal of the decluttering. The pure state answers to nothing. And that's where that word pure has to be effective. It answers to nothing. It has no outcome. It has no usefulness. It's pure. It's you regenerating your brain by not freaking using it. And I tell you, it's probably the hardest thing to do in modern culture on this planet, is to not use your brain so that it regrows. How you do it, I don't know. But this came to me as, I guess, sort of, I always talk every week like everything's an epiphany to me, but that's my life. My significant other is constantly mocking me. She describes my life as a state of constant discovery. So even things I realized years ago, I realize again as if it's the first time, sort of over and over. That's kind of how I just sort of am. And this moment of thinking about pure states, flying this kite, it didn't happen when I was flying the kite, because that was a pure state. It happened at dinner time, like an hour and a half later, and just sitting there, eating my delicious, picnic table cooked dinner. I was like, whoa, I think some of my brain cells regrew. So do what you can to find this pure state. And just putting the intention to find it in your head is a step toward finding it. So whatever form it takes for you, I invite you to give it a try. Holler at me. Tell me what happens. Share your story with me of what your pure state is and why it's pure, why it feels like that kite moment with that breeze. I mean, granted, that's a pretty good one because there's so little going on there. That's the magic of a good vacation, right? You're just standing on some random grassy hill. You can hear the waves behind you and that cool ocean breeze. Is just, come on, that's pretty good. But maybe we can get little pieces of this in our daily lives. Yeah, and Carl, you're right. This is a lot like mindfulness, but this is a different version of it. And if you guys want to hear more, please go check out my mindfulness sort of podcast on Patreon. That's one of my favorites that I've done over the last few years. I think it's, anybody know what number that is? I think it's in the high 30s. It's RPG Mainframe, somewhere like 38, 39, something like that. Talking about mindfulness, talking about meditative techniques. But I think the pure state is even simpler and is not a technique. It's a sort of a circumstance you get yourself into, you stumble into. And I'm not sure you can even intentionally get there. If you can, please email me and tell me tell me how. That's right. Karate here. Karate here. All right. The second one is a little more of a nuts and bolts sort of item that was, when you're sleeping in a tent and you sleep less throughout the night, but you wake up more refreshed. That's weird, right? In those moments when you're laying there in the tent and you can see the moon and you can hear the bugs, that's a good time to think. And this next one is much more nuts and boltsy, D&D, I'm a GM kind of thing. Pure states is like, I just want to live a good life as a human being. That's like such a huge level of breadth. It's like barely useful to us here and, playing D&D mode beta, right? Where this channel's about the hobby, damn it. Not just like, I'm great and I'm happy. I have a job at WeWork, whatever. This next one is much more nuts and boltsy, and it just has one word. As I was lying there, sort of not sleeping, but getting more rest than a night of normal sleep, I was wondering about this sort of sandbox question, because it looks like, I don't have a huge update on my OSE group this week because obviously I was on vacation, but it does look like I'm going to have a second group now forming. So I'm going to put them in the same world and we've got splinter groups going and stuff. And so I'm wondering, wow, so, does the sandbox concept really work? The hex crawl without hexes and without crawling. And, is there a better analogy or a metaphor for me to think about this way of creatively preparing a world for players in a way that's practical And that adds up and that makes for fun sessions. And I'm lying there, listening to bugs and things, and a word popped in my head. And the more I've thought about it, the more useful it becomes. And that word, my friends, is pachinko. Now, pachinko isn't necessarily a game that you play. It's a sort of a thing you experience. Pachinko is basically a machine that drops one or more metal balls at the top of a board, and then the metal ball proceeds to dance around these metal pins and go in unpredictable directions as quantum physics play their hand, and it goes down, and you wonder where the little metal ball is going to wind up at the bottom. That's pachinko. And there's a game show out there where they have like a gigantic version of pachinko with these glowing balls, and it lands on money. I can't remember the name. I think it's called The Ball. Is that the name of that show? Or is it called The Suitcase? I can't remember. Game shows freaking suck, so I don't watch them. But pachinko is this ball tumbling down this board of pins. Yeah, plinko is what it's. Yes, plinko, exactly. It's not called pachinko? It's also in my life has been called pachinko. I think it probably has a lot of names. Let's call it plinko too. It's kaplinko pachinko, right? So the one I had was called pachinko. I swear, I got it for Christmas when I was like 7, and it was the American version. So maybe they had warped the word. Pachinko is the OG name. Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, so pachinko is how I knew it. I like the name plinko too. That's pretty fun. Plinko to me is like shooting a 22 at cans. Oh wait, no, that's plinkin. Lincoln, plinkin, and nod. Anyway, pachinko. What the fuck does pachinko have to do with D&D, Hanker and Farnail? I'll tell you what. It is a visual metaphor for creating sandbox content for players. Your players are the ball. And there's more than one ball. Sometimes you're releasing 4 balls at the top of the pachinko machine. And then, doom, 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 doom. What are the metal pins? The metal pins are the bullet points in your journal of cool shit, right? Bugbear hiding in a cave. Bunch of goblins jumping around in tall grass. Castlevania. Gotta watch that shit. So good. Random monsters coming out of gravestones. Giant meteor gives off dust that makes people turn into ravenous zombies. These are 4 little metal pins in my pachinko machine. Here come the metal ball of the players. Bloop! I let them go, and they go blink, 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 blink. They might not hit all of the pins. And in what order do they hit the pins? I'm not sure. I think in a lot of cases, especially as YouTube dungeon mastering has definitely become a thing in the last few years, there's this weird assumption that somehow dungeon masters are like proposing stories or like lore dumps or something. Like it's almost assumed that they're doing it, that's a thing that's happening. There's no lore. I don't see that happening. The DM isn't lore dumping. They are narrating the journey of the steel ball down the pachinko machine and the pins that ball hits that change its course. Those I did decide as the dungeon master. I put those there. I put the goblins in the tall grass. I put the creatures hiding in the gravestones. I put the meteor that gives the dust off that turns people into ravenous zombies. I did those things, but those things aren't story. The ball bouncing down through the pins and the details of why they happen in a certain sequence that they happen in, that's the story, and that's not a thing that a DM can create. All they can create is the board, and then pull the little thingy, and the balls start bouncing downward. And sometimes they split apart. There's one that goes way over here. What the fuck is that one doing? Oh, I don't know. He's over there. And then, whoop, it's coming back. You have a top and a bottom. The top is the beginning of your story. The bottom is your sort of imagined climax. But you do not write the story as the dungeon master. And to think that you're confused. And it probably is just going to go awry on you, give you frustration. Your players are going to feel like they're trying to guess what's in your mind. No, what you're doing is just placing fun little pins on a board and letting a ball bounce down through it. Yo, Park, thanks, man. Gravity is time in this case, Adam. Gravity is time. So in Pachinko, gravity pulls the ball down through. But for us, time is what happens, session after session, week after week. Time is what's pulling us along. Or if you thought of gravity as the compelling force, you could say it's curiosity. Players are curious to get to the bottom of the board in the Pachinko model. Your job is to put little pins in their way that have nothing to do with anything in many cases. But then over time, oh, wait, they do have something to do with each other. And that's going to bring us to our third point. The third epiphany. So the second one is imagine that Pachinko machine. Just let yourself sink into that idea. Does that help you feel more free when you're working in your journal and writing down bullet points for what your next session is going to be? By the way, you got to draw a sword going through a brain. Always good for notes. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. That brings me to the third idea, the third epiphany, which is something I like. I hinted at it in the sort of announcement yesterday for the stream, which I like to call implied intention. Now, you guys know that in my drawing streams and when I paint live on YouTube, which not a lot of people watch those streams, and that's totally okay. In those streams, one of the methods that I use to do the art that I do is implied intention. And that is like when Gimli falls off the horse and he says, "That was deliberate." Or when Pee Wee Herman falls off his bicycle and he says, "I meant to do that." That's implied intention. That is where an accident happens, an unexpected thing that you had probably nothing to do with. And then what you do is you lean into it. You just go, "Oh, weird, that line is curved. I thought that was going to be like a telephone pole. But now it looks like, I don't know, maybe like the back of a Volkswagen." Like, that is a really good example, honestly, of implied intention. Is I meant to draw a telephone pole. I got a weird curved line, and I thought, hey, that kind of reminds me of the back of a Volkswagen. And then I draw a Volkswagen. Terribly. That is implied intention. It is taking the unexpected, mistakes usually, especially mistakes, and then sort of letting yourself say, I meant to do that. It's okay. Oh, I was drawing a Volkswagen the whole time. It's not bullshitting because you're just embracing what's happening. Bullshitting is when you sort of maybe stretch the truth to tell someone that's what you planned all along. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Say, hey, yeah, I actually kind of go with the flow as new details emerge that almost always arise from my own mistakes or from player mistakes or from our sort of storytelling flubbery. Or maybe we forgot a detail and we filled in a new detail and gave a guy a name. And then this is the moment that the magic happens. This is the moment where implied intention can happen. Is that one, you're always harvesting player ideas, not just yours. Players are having little ideas throughout every session. You're not writing them down because that would be awkward. That's like being a therapist. Don't be that person. But afterwards, you remember some of the player ideas and then write them down. Don't be weird and be filming someone while they're going to the bathroom. Okay, that's just twisted. Don't be that person. But later you can think, ooh, that was weird. That one thing that she said, I'm gonna make a little note on that. And then next session, there's this weird echo of this sort of subtly mentioned thing that's like, whoa. Okay, that's the first one. The next one is retcon the unknown. Yo, I've heard myths about dungeon masters who create these big complex worlds and then dole them out over the course of several sessions, and they're immutable. And it's like, I got this out of a 500-page book, and the truth has always been there, and you're only uncovering it. It's like doing real-world archaeology for a bit. I don't know. This is a myth that we talk about in our hobby. I don't really know if it's ever real. I honestly doubt that it is, because your instinct is the right instinct, which is to retcon the unknown. The unknown does not need to be fixed and unveiled like frickin' Gobekli Tepe, making us question our assumptions about the foundation of civilization based on absolute and immutable fact. No. If something is unknown in the campaign and a truth is suggested that is not what you thought it would be, but it's still unknown, you retcon that shit. You retcon it on the spot. Retcon the unknown. The other good one you can do to do implied intention is to make NPCs mention the stuff that used to be a mistake or a little idea that a player had that is now canonical truth. You have an NPC, your fruit vendor is like, hey, I heard that the vampire is actually just a giant swarm of bugs. Right? An NPC is mentioning something that was maybe one of your wacky prep mistakes or something crazy that a player suggested, but then an NPC mentions it in a stupid voice. Very effective for implied attention. And you know who the master of implied intention is? I don't know if you call them master. They're kind of a little bit of a victim of their own imagination here. But it's Ray in Ghostbusters. It just popped in there. We used to roast Stay Puft marshmallows on the shores of Lake Winnetonka, right? Gozer scans their brains, and Ray accidentally thinks of Stay Puft marshmallows. And then it becomes the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That is a Dungeon Master moment. Now, is the Dungeon Master Gozer in this case or Ray? We're going to have to leave that one for the ages. It's both. It's both Gozer and Ray equal the Dungeon Master. It's been a pleasure, Dr. Vinkman. Anyway, those three elements are the three elements that I've sort of recently rediscovered or, had this epiphany to think about. One, entering pure states, finding them in our daily lives. You know what I mean? Clear your docket for a night. Don't do anything. And then, like, when that boredom starts to set in, do the next thing that pops in your head and go ahead and do it for a few hours because you got some free time, because you got nothing scheduled. Ride your bicycle in circles in a Walmart parking lot when no one's there. It's divine, believe me. But it's not the kind of thing you want to, schedule to do. Nobody plans to do that. It just happens at 1 a.m. This is getting a little specific. Maybe this actually happened. I guess you'll never know. The second one is Pachinko. Think of your preparation as a Pachinko machine. You're just setting up little bullet points, and the players are balls just bouncing down through the bullet points. It isn't a story that you're preparing. It isn't cohesive in any way. It's just little boink, 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 and dong, 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 dong. It's like making an Excite Bike track. Is there a story to Excite Bike? No. Not until someone is standing behind you while you're playing going, whoa, woo, whoopsie, my leg, which we've all had that happen. And finally, implied intention. Take your mistakes, your unpredictable elements, your little player ideas that are just brief mentions or even questions if you really want to be evil, and then give them implied intention. Give them accidental gravity. They are not just mentions. They're not just mistakes. They are the truth now because, whoa, here comes the boar cult. Someone joked last week about how they wanted their character to be like half boar and start to grow tusks. Then as you come over the rise, you notice these cultists walking down the pathway with all these boar heads on and these red robes. And you're like, uh-oh, the dungeon master's been watching Hanker and Fernie. Those are my notes for this week. Those are 3 creative anchor points, techniques, goals, methods, mental states to put yourself in to play D&D better. Remember, week after week, we're having to come up with shit, little scenarios, maps, maybe a monster that's slightly interesting or an NPC who has something interesting to say. An old lady, would you like to buy a tiny frog? Right? The most random things and the most sort of story critical things. Because here on Runehammer and the way that I play, I find it almost impossible to play things that I purchase. I can't buy gameplay, read it, and somehow deliver it to the table. maybe I'm just a nimwit or something, but I just can't do it. I need to be flexible in the moment and go with the flow of what's in my journal and what I think D&D is and what I think fantasy is all about and stuff like that. So I'm always looking for techniques that are going to give me more longevity, more efficacy, more energy as a weekly creative person, as a consistently creative person, not just someone who relies on the convenience of inspiration. So I hope those 3 techniques, those 3 mental targets are useful for you guys in the next week. They're definitely giving me some crazy fuel as I'm running my 2 games, which are about to become 3 games that I'm going to be running weekly. So that's a little maxing out for me, but hey, enthusiasm is enthusiasm. You got to go with it. So there it is. That's the big thinky part. And now we're going to listen to an awesome little ditty played by legendary band The Roots. Oh man, Questlove nails it every time. Park, get out of here. Get out of here with all those awesome tips. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. Would you like to buy a tiny toad? He's my brother. Never mind the implications of me selling my own brother. It's human trafficking in the form of a tiny toad. Oh. It's like Blue Fang's musical apothecary. Welcome! We aren't just a seller of potions, it's an entire dinner theater. God, that sounds absolutely freaking miserable. Okay, let's do some Q&A shit. Let's get into some Q&A shit for, I don't know, half an hour or something. I'm going to get the hell out of here. I got a bunch of stuff to do tonight. I am on a roll. I had the weirdest feeling coming back from vacation of just like, why am I in a house? Why would I sleep indoors? This is twisted. But then about 24 hours later, I remembered why I do this hobby, why I do the things that I do. I got psyched. So like I'm riding this wave right now. Yo, Ajax, what's the most you've ever lost on a coin toss? Probably the life of a character. As far as the game goes. In real life, I don't really bet on coin tosses. But oh man, we do tons of coin tosses in our game. If we have a motto, if I don't know the answer as the DM, then we have to coin toss it. Anything I don't already know the answer for, we use dice. Yo, Chris, what's up, man? Did you reveal anything about your mask on the wall in the background? Not yet. There is still a lot of work to do there. I have to be supremely ready for that to really hit. Suffice it to say, this is one of people around me in general on the internet and in person have been talking me into bigger, more complex, more ambitious projects. And that is one of them. So not yet. Worst time someone rolled a nat 1. Nat 1s always seem like something that we dread, but I gotta say, almost every time it happens in play, it's so damn fun and beautiful. But I've absolutely seen players have rip up a character sheet because of a nat 1. As far as like the worst, though, I think probably, oh geez, man, I don't know if I'm reporting it accurately because it's been many years, but I feel like we had an incident where our wizard was trying to save our halfling, and our halfling was a lot like the Frodo of our group, and was basically going to sacrifice himself to get this last, get out of this beam sort of thing, and got the nat 1, and they both tumbled in and were incinerated, and that was sad. Or there's like the time Gilsunder was tossed out into the fires of Ironheart. There's so many sudden horrors because of nat 1s. It's hard to pick a favorite one, Harry. Hey, Michael, what's up? Do you think having a through-line twin adventure is important? No, I don't. I think it's more important to have a space that feels understandable. And that's just the newer me. The old me would say, yeah, the through line is the shit. Like it's absolutely critical. It's one big story. It's like a novel. But I've been playing in a much more relaxed fashion, and I really like it. It took me literally decades to reach this point of sort of relaxing into it. And I think it does feel a little cooler. It's a little easier to have fun. I'm going to sneeze. I must be allergic to D&D. I must be allergic to being mo better. All right. Any board games inspiring you? Nope. The plague of board games and Kickstarter has completely spun me out of that mindset. Really been more interested in small stuff. John Spencer, tips on making interesting magic items. Not really. I really think that magic items being complex and fascinating is a weird DM fetish. I really think players just want a little bit of power and maybe a quirk, but nothing crazy. I don't think talking swords and stuff are really necessarily what players are really after. I think a +2 sword that occasionally beheads its target and like gives the player 1 hit point and then also makes them feel darkness. That's plenty. I'm gearing up to run a ninja game. Yeah, cool. Movies come. Well, Ninja Scroll is my favorite in the ninja genre. Also Tenchu, love it. The Shinobi franchise. Oh man, Revenge of the Ninja. I mean, American Ninja is the corn version. Definitely get into that. Oh man, ninjas are just so good. But Ninja Scroll, that's my shit right there. Gemma, fucking A. What a cool enemy for ninjas. Have you played Vampire Masquerade? No. That's not really my style. You're dope, Hankerin. That's not a question, Carlos. You cheated. Coolest moment as a DM in a campaign? Oh my God. Come on. That's really hard. It's probably not like something that you would expect, like a big apotheosis or some kind of big reveal. It really is more toward the beginning, usually, like the 3rd session or so. I think in many cases I've had my favorite moment. It's when like players click, they have a moment, they see truths that may be out there, but they also kind of use the facts that have been revealed so far. I think a lot of times my favorite DM moment is somewhere in that part of the campaign. And then the specific examples, there's just too many to pick one. Have you run or planned cool encounters involving animals, mounted combat? Absolutely. Got to do those things. Absolutely do those things. Wolves in the North, yo. What do you think of OSE thief skills? They're fine. They require a bit of a twink. They're really nerfed. And so some people might come into being a thief and not be ready to fail quite that much. So they're real low. But I love the system. Just twink the numbers just a little bit to make your thief feel cooler. Or give them a little invented side ability that fits their concept of a thief. Just come up with something. OSE isn't, on deck to give you everything you want. It's up to you to modify it a little bit. Advice on pacing. Hey, whoa, you guys are going too fast. Pacing your games. Well, yeah, variety. Always 1, 2, then 3 that's totally different. Then 1, 2, then 3 that's totally different. Over and over and over. How do you get into the mind of just DMing like Zen in the DM zone when you run? Well, relax. First of all, just relax. Relax of what this game is supposed to be. Just that is step 1. And step 2, constantly look into the eyes of your players. The eyes. And I'm not even exaggerating. Like eye contact to glean what's fun and what isn't and ride that wave. As I've mentioned before, it's a lot like DJing or doing like a comedy set or something, being a sort of a performer. You're riding what's working and what's not and just having fun. Not thinking about what this world is or this adventure is or what it's supposed to be. I think that's a good way to bind up and get tight. Stay loose and relax. That's how you have fun with everything in life. Material for a seafaring campaign. You don't need material. Just build it yourself. But I mean, I don't know, the 7 Seas and stuff like that. Not really. There's no material that pops to mind that's awesome. If anything, what I would do is like watch, Master and Commander, watch Pirates of the Caribbean, and just mine my own ideas of what I think it could be. I wouldn't look to material, quote unquote material. Ajax is back. How would you feel if someone made you a character in their game? Oh, that's happened a lot, actually. Hankerin exists in many games. He's like a paddle-wielding sort of fisherman dwarf who never catches any fish. From a lot of people's D&D games to World of Warcraft, which he exists in there too. And it's great. It's freaking awesome. The more that real people appear in each other's games, the more we stitch this weird web of feeling like the world exists. And that's always a good thing. Yo, Chris. Sorry, Chris. I'm trying to scroll here. You mentioned removing infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah, actually, Chris, I don't know if you saw this Instagram post. I posted my kit that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and it has 8 times as many likes as any of my other posts. It's crazy. So people are definitely into the idea of using a more abstract kit to play with. So it's gone great. How would you manage a stupid death at the table? Well, would you let the other characters to save him by? No, you only bend the rules within the exact rules that you've already stated at your table. Do not make death flimsy. So if you already have a rule at your table that's going to give somebody a chance, but each turn that passes where that death is coming up, you need to be absolutely clear with everyone what the stakes are of how close that death is. That way, when it does come, and if it comes because they are utterly like blown to mist by a boulder toss from a giant or something like that, you also have to embrace that. You have to make that tremendous, make it have gravity, maybe propose the idea of a resurrection if it's even possible. Maybe it's a quest, I don't know. But just make sure you get everything out in the open. When death happens, the right thing to do is talk to your players as a player and just treat the game as the moment. Be completely transparent. Break the fourth wall. Go meta. Talk about what's happening. Have fun with it. Yeah, Vancouver's cool. No, I don't know anything about Vancouver. I haven't been there in years, but it's an awesome town. Really, really fun. Have you had success using interactive videos for a session? Nope. How do you handle death in your OC? Well, if someone drops to 0 hit points, they get 1 round, and when the round comes back to them, they're dead beyond recovery. It's that simple. That's how I do it in my game. Hall of Craft, what's up? What are you drinking this wonderful Friday evening? I'm drinking this weird, too dark, kind of flat English bitter. Not kind of flat, totally flat. And I think it's called Hop Bon. I was having one of those earlier too. Just weird, random beers. It's Friday. What would you say are the master DMs of our age? You look toward there's no such thing. A DM is never a master, neither are players. No one deserves to be lifted up or pushed down in this hobby. It's all a collaboration. There is no master DM. As a matter of fact, it sounds horrible. No one is a star here. And the idea that someone should be and they're doing kick flips and stuff is to me is not the hobby. The hobby to me is cooperative, it's collaborative between people, and that their celebrity and D&D just do not mix for me. It's just really weird. Follow-up made you my target, and it was kind of weird. Taking your magic leg. Okay, I'm just going to move past that. What is your favorite thing about the new school OSE game that you run? Favorite thing? The people. The players are unique. I mean, they're wild. They're just so different from players I've had in the past. Systems and games, and that isn't interesting. The people are interesting. Can you hold up your journal so we can get a better look? Sorry, that was a total troll. I'm 4 pages away from the end of my journal after a year of journaling, so I'll do a time lapse of it here soon on YouTube. Thanks for asking, though, Wolf. How did you come about bronkering the deal at the bar? Oh, no, we just knew of a spot that has like a sort of vacant floor above the bar that you can reserve with a minimum bar tab. So we just use that. Yeah, just got to look around and ask. Especially if you live in a larger city. A lot of these older bars have a little spot like this. Do you use character dismemberment, loss of limb, eye? No, I don't do any of that stuff. Scanning. Best fantasy film that isn't Lord of the Rings. Whoo-wee. Well, Conan the Barbarian, I guess. I don't know. Willow. That is not a very large category. Are you still playing War? I never played Age of Sigmar. That was what was so crazy about it. We did this whole investment. We tried to learn the rules and everything, and then there was never a host. It never happened. I think this is somewhat common when it comes to 40K or Warhammer or whatever. It's so overwhelming that you get excited. You look into it, and you just basically want to take a nap and play D&D. Chris, what's up? Could you post that character sheet you made? Yeah, I think I posted. I always post everything I make, so it should be up there. Yeah, the one that I drew did get posted. I think it's on Patreon. So, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on redoing finished campaigns? Oh, wait, hang on. I will be right back. I have. Okay, just had a minor reality situation there. Okay. Everything should be fine once again. Let's get back into it. We got a little while left before I got to get running here. Yo, Brandon Yusko, how much narrative authority do you tend to give your players? Creating details about characters or places. They kind of do it without intending to. I wouldn't say that I just openly say, like, stuff you guys say becomes real. I wouldn't quite put it in that level of improv reality. But without them knowing, they have a lot of agency into what becomes real. Could you double check later? A few of us. Yeah, I can. So find the hand-drawn character sheet, putting it in the brain. Holocraft, how do you deal with burnout? Well, that's kind of a topic I've been trying to cover for years now on YouTube. There is no way to deal with it. I haven't been able to play in person for over a year now, and it's harshing my buzz. Yeah, playing online is not that cool. There is no solution to burnout except not playing. The way to not burn out is to rest. To stop playing, take a break, do something else. Now, if what you're describing sounds more like withdrawal than burnout, which is like you haven't been able to play in person, so you're burning out playing online, just stop. Ever worry about liver damage? That's cute. Holocraft. My players on Underwater Planet renting seahorses to get around. How many giant squid? There's like D4 giant squid. It shouldn't be a lot of them. It really should only take like one giant squid to really make things complex. So it doesn't have to be a bunch of them. House DM, do you ever use something like West Marches style exploration? That's exactly what we're doing right now. I have a splintered group with variable membership each week, and I have a second group entering the same world coming Monday. So I'm going to have 8 total players in 2 separate groups with variable membership per week, all playing in the same world. So if that's not West Marches, I don't know what is. And that's what I've been talking about the last several weeks here on the stream. Vojin Kremek. Now that is a name. Vohin. What are your thoughts on redoing finished campaigns, but the history of the world and setting are changed? On redoing finished, I'm not sure what that means. Oh, like playing it again, but it's different? I can't even imagine that. I've never played something again. I've never played anything twice. Ever. I mean, I can't even fathom that. That's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, a group moved through this and affected it, and now we're playing through it again, and it's different. Is like I can't. That is a mind melter, an absolute mind melter for me. Are those play groups on the same timeline? Is one a week ahead of the other? Well, it's variable. I mean, we're all adults, right? It's hard to just slam dunk the same dates every single week. You know, you got to jockey it. This, we got to admit, I mean, this is 30% of being a game master, is getting the session to happen each week or every other week. I mean, so the timeline is slightly plastic, but they're basically every other week alternating. So yeah, it's, for me, it's weekly. But as far as in the game world, I think they'll be pretty much simultaneous. I'm not sure if the real world delay between sessions, we're going to get that detailed. That's kind of crazy. Thoughts on paid DMing? I can't. That's like paying someone to be your friend. That just makes no sense to me. How's DM? How are you keeping track of your world? Well, like I said, it's a pachinko machine. My world is just a series of bullet points, and people bump into the bullet points. And when things are sort of resolved, I pull that little pin out, and then the ball no longer bumps into that. But I don't build a hex. I don't use hexes, for one thing. I don't really build world maps. I kind of am using the Blackmore map as my continent. But I just think in a far more sort of relaxed, sort of plasticky, gooey kind of way. A very fuzzy thinker, as they would call it on the X-Files. Ian Cross, what's up? How much do players impact the world you build for them? Absolutely. There's no building a world fully before the play. I don't believe in that. I know that that's a thing, like a fantasy about DMing, that you build this entire world and players play. I don't believe in that. I do my best to come up with some bullet points of what may happen in the near future, and they become what it is, and they make me adapt my concept of what the immediate area is. And if you really want to build a world and then make it static and players move through it, that's what video games are all about. So I see RPGs being very different. Any updates on your OSE supplement? Yeah, it's called Iron Bend, or it's maybe The Fight for Iron Bend. I've kind of been working the title a little bit. It's getting there. I've done a lot of the mechanical stuff, and now I'm just doing the flavor stuff, getting ready to do the art. But I'm so neck deep in so many things that I wouldn't be too anxious about Iron Bend. I think it's going to take some time, because the other stuff that is so pressing right now that I've been working on a long time, that's really starting to approach the hangar. So I need to land those planes. But yeah, about 5 projects in flight right now. So, and Iron Bend is just went into the fire. So it's got a ways to go. If Nerdarchy happens in October, I will absolutely be there. Abso-freaking-lutely, Gonzo. Why would the proprietress of Blue Fang's Apothecary and Dinner Show sell her frog brother? Because he's lied to her for the last time. She's sick of his shit. But the thing about her is that she keeps trying to sell him into slavery, but it's always the wrong frog. She's got like a whole jar of frogs, and she knows one of them is her brother. Do you use the idea deck? You mean Think Deck for bullet points? I do. I still use Think Deck quite a bit. I really enjoy it. For me, I just use Think Deck was built because of the method I use with a deck of playing cards. So I kind of made that into Think Deck. So for me, I still use a deck of playing cards when I'm sitting and thinking and jotting things down. I love playing cards. I love the way they feel. So sometimes I'll use Think Deck, but more so I just use the origin of Think Deck, which is a deck of playing cards. That's where that all came from. So for me, I have kind of that code in my head from over the years. And yeah, I still do that method. For me, it gives a good kick in the head. Will Runehammer products appear in German? Yes, it is underway right now, actually. I think French just released. German is underway, and we've got Spanish and Portuguese coming. There's a couple things in Russian, but yeah, German is definitely coming. So keep an eye out. Are there any GameCraft which should change their views? Dude, everything. DP. I am notorious for hating something one year and loving it the next year. So like everything of mine is like that. It's just I'm always like warping and changing what I'm not only what I'm interested in, but what I think is cool, what I think is awesome. It's just I'm the worst with that stuff. Consistency is just not my jam. What ideas from OSE and OSR would you bring to 5e? None. I don't see that as a set of rapids in a river that I'm interested in. 5e is just a cup that's running over. I really just don't have any interest in it. Yeah, I mean, what really is 5e? It's advantage, it's proficiency bonus, consistency, it's shit tons of player options and subsequent supplements. To me, 5e just isn't much of anything, honestly. It's just more D&D. So, OSE coming into D, that just, I don't know, that just sort of adds up to nothing to me. No, I'm not doing really more room designs. I mean, unless it hasn't been evident, I did a ton of those, and I would really invite someone out there to maybe give it a try on YouTube. But I did a zillion of those, and it's always been my philosophy that this hobby is about creating our own stuff. I never wanted to just make rooms forever. That was never my intention. Also, just I change month after month like any normal person. So I can't just do room. Even just doing a D&D channel for coming up on 7 years is challenging, much less just doing the same thing over and over. So I'm not really doing that. I'm trying to bring you guys more into an honest look at my weekly sort of life in the hobby rather than present these kind of finished views of things. I'm really proud of what I have on YouTube that's just there, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm glad it's there. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to do it forever. That was never my intention. But thanks for the interest, though. Who is handling the Spanish version? I don't know if I'm allowed to announce that yet. What do they call? It's the same guys that did Jim Pinto's game, El Refugio. El Refugio is doing the Spanish version. And it'll be all over. I'll boost the signal once it comes out. Who made those rad custom Skull D6s? Those are 3D printed by my man Cyrus Draken from a design that I did. Perkins Dearborn. Do you focus the Dearborn identity? Do you focus your prep entirely on situation set pieces, or do you do anything else to prep? I mainly just live in like a bullet point world. My prep is bullet points, and I've talked about it here on the stream recently quite a bit. This is what my prep looks like. It's stuff. It's chaotic with small maps, and then every once in a while, I'll really like lean into a map. For example, like I'll have an afternoon where there's not much to do, so I'll go ahead and like do a lot more for a particular map with some bullets to go along with it and stuff. But yeah, generally, no. I've just really relaxed into it. I really lean on my players a lot to take bullets and run. What are your thoughts on in-game cultures being based on real-world cultures? I avoid that. I avoid that a lot. That is a weird area for me. I find that to be forced. I just go with the moment. I mean, you guys probably intuit this about me, but I run a relatively humorous, relatively relaxed game. I don't look for a lot of cultural nuance. My character at the apothecary, would you like to buy a tiny frog? He's my brother. That's like the level of the intellect in my games. I don't really get into something like real world cultures. I'm sure it would be cool though. And cable is fucking awesome. Yes. Especially in the 90s sense of it. Is the room design question your most asked question? Probably not. It comes up a good deal, but probably not the most asked one. The most asked one is probably either how do you avoid burnout or how would you modify 5e? Probably the most asked. You brought up playing cards. Have you ever thought of using Magic the Gathering cards? Nope. I stay as far away from Magic the Gathering as humanly possible. Magic the Gathering is wild. It's like a car that takes up 4 parking spaces in the hobby. It just has way overstepped its welcome. It's totally cool, great card game and all that good stuff, but it's like the red weed in War of the Worlds. It just covers everything. I don't know why. Just don't. No more, please. Please spare me the Magic the Gathering. I can't. I just can't. Maybe I'm old or something. I don't know what it is, but I am old. What am I saying? And it's fine. Like, I want everyone to have fun with Magic the Gathering. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't play it or something, or it's dumb. It's not. I see why it's popular. It's awesome. But man, is it just take up parking in the hobby. Holy moly. Whew. Like, game stores just become Magic the Gathering stores. It's just like, whoa. Okay. Woo. I caught up. Boom. Look at me work. Look at me work. Oops. A miniature line. That would be cool, but no. It's another thing I'm seeing flooding the world. It's just miniatures. Look, here's 20,000 miniatures for $50 on Kickstarter. I know that we have 3D printers and miniatures are exciting, but holy shit, the flood of miniatures. The more that our hobby is flooded with miniatures, the more I just shop the old Reaper ones, and the old Ral Partha ones. I love them because they just, I don't know if maybe I'm just old or just there's something about it. It's before there was a billion miniatures. And you guys know me, I have zillions of them and I left them all behind in Washington and, starting to collect more. Miniatures are amazing. They will always be really cool, but everyone making them in droves and all this ZBrush that's finding its way into miniature design, to me is a mixed bag as far as quality goes. Newest tattoo. What are the mechanical changes you want to make for OSE? 1 round after dropping to 0 hit points, twink the rogue skills, give an extra spell to spellcasters, and at 3rd level, open up both spell lists to both spellcaster classes or all 3 spellcaster classes, and allow spell importing from elsewhere with GM approval, and every other little detailed mod. That we have so many little mods. Invent things that feel like feats and put them in a piece of loot, and then the loot only lasts a little while. But you said newest tattoo. I'm trying to think what it was. Oh, it's this guy. It's my frog of absolute commitment. My katana frog. He's leaping. He's striking. That's my newest one. I don't know that whiskey. Sounds wonderful. Later, Eric. Let's just do a couple more and I got to run out of here. Would you share your travel procedures you're using for your campaign? I don't use any travel procedures. We bypass that part with a musical montage and we move on. I know that travel procedures are a sort of a holy grail of our game. I don't bother with it. I don't see a reason to bother with it. There's so many other things going on. Hey, Dinesh, what's up? OSE is Old School Essentials by Necrotic Gnome. Check it out. You can get a copy on Exalted Funeral. No, I don't know anything about adventures. I don't run published adventures. Whew, okay. Did it. You guys, thank you for tuning in. Please catch up with me on Instagram. I'm hankering.fernail, or I don't really hang out on Twitter or Facebook anymore because they've become infested with lunatics. So those 2 platforms are just getting weird. They're just kind of pointless looking at them. But Instagram is still great. So hop over and catch up with me on Instagram. I'm always posting my latest stuff there in the form of pictures and whatnot, as well as pictures of the mighty chutney. And if you really want to get sort of in on what I do as I create the things I create for whatever crazy reason, jump over on my Patreon for $1 measly, and you can get in the Discord and you can get all my progress posts that I do on my stuff. That's Viking Death Squad, my new RPG. That's Index Card RPG Master Edition, which is going to be all my stuff compressed and revised into one book, as well as my OSE supplement, Iron Bend, and more. I'm also got a 5th novel that I'm working on. And, you know how it is. You're always working on crazy shit. That's what this is all about. So, yeah, it's not necessarily a plug for that stuff. I know some people feel like it's a paywall a little bit. $1 is the minimum. So I couldn't go any lower than that. It does help me pay my bills. It does help me organize the little sort of rune con that we're working on for next year and some other stuff. So there is some fun little currents lurking under the surface with the Runehammer Patreon. I hope. I mean, the idea is that it's fun, right? You don't want it to be not fun. That would suck. But anyway, there you go. Thank you guys for tuning in. Just like thoughts and epiphanies from taking a week off. I'll see you guys next Friday. And by then, I will have a campaign update for y'all. And please stay in touch with me. Hit me up directly on Instagram, on the emails. I'm hankering.fernail@gmail.com. Or hit me up. Well, if you hit me up on Twitter and Facebook, I might not notice because, as I said, those sites have just, I don't know what the fuck happened. This shit is crazy. But I stay away. That's it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Keep it real. Don't steal. You're always going to get a deal. Strength, honor, and of course, beer. Delicious. Yeah, I think that's it for tonight. I'm going to get out of here. I got a bunch of stuff to do. It's nice outside. I'm going to go out on the back patio. I'm going to chill. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. See you next time.